The Bible says the earth is only 6,000 years old. Could that really be true? Or is there something much deeper hidden beneath the surface of this ancient belief? You've probably heard this statement before, spoken with conviction by many well-meaning people in churches, on social media, or in religious books. But is it really the truth? Why is this belief, claiming that the earth is only a mere 6,000 years old, so widely accepted? More importantly, why has it been passed down through the centuries without question? Could there be more to the story than we've been told? In this video, we will dive deep into the fascinating history of the Earth's age from a biblical perspective. You'll discover how a 17th century Archbishop, James Ussher, used biblical genealogies to determine that the Earth was created in 4004 BC, and why this idea was once accepted as gospel truth. We will explore the shocking shift that occurred when modern science started challenging this belief with evidence that pointed to an Earth millions of years old. But the most intriguing question remains: what does the Bible really say about the age of the Earth? I'm about to reveal truths that will challenge everything you thought you knew about the creation story in Genesis. The ancient scriptures, the scientific discoveries, and the theological debates, each of them holds keys that unlock deeper meanings about our world and our relationship with God. What if the story of Genesis isn't about material creation at all, but about the creation of order? What if understanding the Earth's true age isn't the point? What if there's something far more important that the Bible wants us to focus on instead? You'll want to stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you will have a completely new perspective on the relationship between the Bible, science, and the age of the Earth. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you've ever wondered about the intersection of faith and science, hit that subscribe button, like, and join this powerful conversation. Together, let's uncover the truth. In the 17th century, a man named James Ussher, an archbishop from Ireland, set out to solve a question that had lingered in the hearts and minds of people for centuries. How old is the Earth? With deep reverence for the Bible, Ussher meticulously examined the genealogies in the scriptures and traced the ages of the patriarchs listed in the Old Testament. His calculations led him to a precise, even startling conclusion. The Earth was created in 4004 BC, with the moment of creation pinpointed to the evening of October 22nd. This date became an anchor for many, a firm belief that the Earth was only 6,000 years old. But what if there was more to this story? What if we have been so focused on the number of years that we have missed the deeper message of creation itself? Ussher's calculation was built on a literal interpretation of the Bible, taking the text word for word, without pause, without question. It was an interpretation that shaped centuries of Christian thought, giving rise to the belief that the Earth's age could be derived from the sacred text. However, as science began to unfold, with the study of geology in the 18th and 19th centuries, a different story emerged. Fossils, rock layers, and geological formations pointed to a much older Earth, one that had existed for millions of years before humans walked its surface. This contrast between faith and science became a battleground that has lasted into our modern day. Many Christians began to question Ussher's conclusions. They wrestled with the tension between what was clearly revealed through scientific exploration and what they had always been taught from their pulpits and in their homes. Were the scientists wrong? Were the scriptures lying? Or was there a different way to understand the age of the Earth that could reconcile both? When we examine Genesis, we realize something essential. The Bible was not written to provide a scientific account of creation. Genesis 1 speaks to a much more profound message, one of order, purpose, and divine intention. The ancient Israelites didn't write Genesis to answer the question of how many years old the Earth was. They were concerned with the who and the why of creation, not the how. The ancient world viewed the cosmos differently, not as something that was created out of material substances, but as something brought into order from chaos. The creation story was a theological declaration, not a scientific treatise. It wasn't about creating things, it was about establishing order for a flourishing life where humanity could live in harmony with God. The first verse of Genesis begins with, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." But notice, it does not immediately explain how the earth came to be, what material was used, or how long it took. Instead, it starts with a statement of purpose. God created order out of chaos. In the ancient Near Eastern world, chaos was often represented as water, a symbol of formlessness, unpredictability, and danger. Genesis tells us that God's first act was to bring order to the chaos. Day and night were established on the first day. The very concept of time, of rhythm and cycle, was ordered from what was once disordered. As you think about this, I want you to pause and consider. How often do we view our own lives through the lens of chaos? We face challenges, confusion, and uncertainty. But the message of Genesis 1 is not just about the universe. It is about God bringing order into our own lives. In the midst of turmoil, God is the one who brings peace. In the face of darkness, He is the one who brings light. It is through this lens of divine order that we are able to see our lives in a new way, one where we can trust that God is working behind the scenes to restore, heal, and provide. In the ancient Israelite worldview, creation wasn't just about material objects or the physical formation of mountains and seas. It was about creating a space where human beings could thrive. On day 2, God separated the waters to form the sky. And on day 3, He separated the land from the waters and caused plants to grow. Notice that these acts weren't just about creating things, plants, sky, and land. They were about setting the stage for human life to flourish. God was creating an environment where His people could thrive, work, grow, and live in relationship with Him. This idea of creation as function rather than material is crucial. When we understand Genesis not as a literal scientific description, but as a profound theological story, we begin to see a deeper message about God's heart for us. Genesis is a story of God's relationship with His creation. It's about establishing a world in which humanity could flourish, not just in physical terms, but in spiritual, relational, and emotional terms. Think about it. When God created light on the first day, He wasn't simply talking about photons. He was establishing order for human existence. Light was not just a physical reality, but a symbol of God's presence. Just as light brings clarity, peace, and direction to the world, God's presence brings clarity and peace to our lives. When God separated the waters to create the sky, He was setting boundaries, providing safety and space for life to grow. Similarly, in our lives, God brings boundaries, not to limit us, but to protect and guide us. The beauty of Genesis 1 is that it answers the who and the why, not the how or the when. It tells us that God is the creator, and He created everything for a purpose. He brought order out of chaos to give us a world where we could live, work, and grow. It shows us that creation is not merely about physical things, it's about function, purpose, and relationship. Let's take a moment to reflect. When we look at our lives, do we see disorder and chaos? Do we feel like we're wandering through life without direction, like we're in the dark? The truth is, God wants to bring order to our chaos, just as He did with the universe. His plan for our lives is not just about giving us material things. It's about establishing the order in which we can thrive spiritually, emotionally, and physically. God didn't need to explain every material detail of creation in Genesis. He didn't need to answer questions about geology or physics. He wanted His people to understand that He is the Creator, and that He created the world for their good, so they could live in peace, harmony, and relationship with Him. Now you might be wondering, what does this have to do with the age of the earth? The simple answer is this. Genesis 1 doesn't give us a clear answer about the age of the Earth because it wasn't concerned with material facts. It was concerned with God's purpose for creation and how humanity fits into that purpose. The focus of Genesis is not the number of years, but the Creator's intentionality in bringing order out of chaos. And while science may answer questions about the Earth's age, Genesis tells us why it exists and for whom it exists. This is a powerful and freeing truth. When we begin to understand that Genesis isn't a scientific textbook, but a theological declaration about God's relationship with His creation, we can start to let go of the need for rigid answers. We don't need to defend every number or calculation. What we need is to understand that the Creator of the universe is still at work, bringing order into our lives today. And just as He established the earth for humanity to thrive, He is still bringing order into the chaos of our lives, healing and restoring us through His divine love. So as we move forward, remember this. The message of Genesis is not about how old the earth is. It's about who created it and why it was created. It's about finding peace, purpose, and order in a world that often feels chaotic. And with that, we move into the next part of our exploration, where we dive deeper into how the ancient Israelites understood their world and how we can apply these ancient truths to our lives today. Stay tuned as we continue to uncover the wisdom of Genesis and the beauty of God's creation. The Bible is not just a collection of stories. It is a divine narrative that holds deep spiritual truths. Genesis, for instance, is not concerned with answering the modern-day questions of science, but is focused on revealing the Creator's relationship with His creation. When we shift our focus from searching for material answers to understanding the deeper message, we begin to uncover a whole new world of wisdom and meaning. One of the most powerful lessons from Genesis comes from the ancient Israelite worldview, which sees creation not just as a physical event, but as an unfolding story of order, purpose, and relationship. When we read Genesis, we must understand that the ancient Israelites were not primarily concerned with how many years ago the world was created. They were more focused on the why the world exists, why we are here, and why the world is ordered in the way that it is. For the Israelites, creation was not just about bringing material things into being, but about creating a functional world, a world where humanity could live in relationship with God and with each other. The Creator didn't just form the heavens and the earth to sit idly. He created them with a purpose, and this purpose is something that we too are called to understand. Take the very first day of creation. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. This act wasn't just about bringing light into the world, it was about bringing order into the darkness. In a world that feels chaotic, where fear and confusion often reign, God's light is the first act of healing. It shows us that God, from the very beginning, was not just creating, but healing, a divine order emerging from the void of darkness. This light wasn't just for the physical universe, it was a spiritual light, illuminating the way for humanity to follow. For those of us navigating through life's challenges, this divine light represents hope in the midst of our struggles. Just as God separated the light from the darkness, He calls us to separate the light of His truth from the darkness of doubt and fear in our own lives. When we focus on the light of His presence, we begin to see the world differently. We start to understand the purpose of the moments of chaos and struggle. They are opportunities for God to bring healing and order into our lives. Genesis chapter 1 is a story of creation as function, not just material reality. On the second day, God created the sky and separated the waters above from the waters below. This was not merely a physical separation, but a separation for a purpose. The sky represents space, space for humanity to breathe, to live, and to thrive. God was establishing a place where life could flourish, a place where the birds could soar, and where humans could one day walk. Think about the sky in your own life. How often do you feel suffocated by the pressures of the world, unable to breathe or find peace? Yet the Creator gives us space, space to breathe, space to rest, space to find His peace in the midst of our storms. God's creation of the sky is a reminder that He wants to give us that very same space in our lives. Space to recover, to rest, to reflect, and to find our purpose. Then, on the third day, God gathered the waters together, allowing dry land to appear, and He commanded the earth to bring forth vegetation, plants yielding seeds and trees bearing fruit. Again, this is not just a material action, it is a function of life. God was creating a space where life could sustain itself. The earth was not simply formed to be a barren rock, but to be a fertile ground, full of life and growth. It was the Creator's intention to provide for humanity through the earth's abundance. We too are called to be a part of this divine order of growth and flourishing. Just as the earth brings forth plants and fruit, we are called to bring forth goodness, kindness, and love in our lives. This is the purpose of our existence, to contribute to the flourishing of the world around us. Whether through our relationships, our work, or our community, we are to bring life and beauty into the world, just as the earth brings forth its bounty. God's creation story continues to unfold, with each day marking a new act of divine order and purpose. Yet, the most remarkable part of this story is the moment when God creates humankind. On the sixth day, God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." This moment is the culmination of the creation story. Humanity was created to bear the image of God, to reflect His love, His creativity, and His desire for relationship. What does it mean to be made in God's image? It means that we, like our Creator, are called to bring order to chaos, to create beauty, to love, to serve, and to steward the earth that He has entrusted to us. We are not just passive recipients of God's creation, we are active participants in His divine plan. Each of us carries the Creator's image within us, and we are called to reflect that image in everything we do. In a world that often tells us we are insignificant, that we are just a random collection of atoms and molecules, the Bible offers a radically different narrative. You are not a mistake. You are made in the image of God, designed with purpose and intention. You were created to be part of something much larger than yourself, a story of healing, restoration, and divine order. But with this privilege comes responsibility. As God entrusted the earth to humanity, He has entrusted us with the care of His creation, both the physical world and the people around us. We are called to be stewards of the earth, to take care of the world that God has made, and to help bring His order and His love into every corner of creation. This is where the tension often arises between faith and science. For some, the age of the earth becomes a battleground, a place where science and scripture seem to conflict. But if we look beyond the material question of how old the earth is and focus on the deeper purpose that Genesis reveals, we begin to see that both science and faith are pointing us toward the same truth. The world is not a random accident. It is a divine creation, ordered and purposeful, filled with beauty, life, and meaning. The age of the earth might be a question for scientists to answer, but the why of creation is a question for the heart, and that answer is found in Genesis. As we continue to explore this divine narrative, we will come to understand that the Bible is not in conflict with science, but is instead pointing us toward the deeper, more meaningful truths of existence. The Creator's message to us is clear. We were made to thrive, to create, to love, and to live in harmony with the world He has made. And as we reflect on the creation story, we must remember, it is not just about the material world. It is about God's divine order, His plan for humanity, and His desire for relationship with each one of us. When we understand this, we can begin to see the world through new eyes, a world that is full of purpose, full of meaning, and full of hope. Just as the Creator brought order out of chaos in Genesis, He is still at work today, bringing order into the chaos of our lives. And as we walk with Him, we are invited to be part of that ongoing story of creation and redemption. As we move forward, let us remember that we are created to reflect God's image and to participate in His divine work. Just as He brought order and life into the world, He calls us to do the same in our own lives, bringing light to the darkness, peace to the chaos, and love to the brokenness of the world around us. As we continue to explore the profound depths of Genesis, we must understand that its teachings go far beyond the material world. They offer us an invitation into a deeper spiritual reality. The ancient Israelite worldview presents creation not as a physical event confined by time and space, but as a profound declaration of God's intention to establish order, relationship, and purpose in a chaotic world. In the midst of the cosmic narrative, we find a message that transcends the scientific details of how old the earth is and speaks directly to the heart of humanity's spiritual journey. Genesis chapter 1, with its focus on the creation of the heavens and the earth, does not concern itself with answering our modern questions about the specifics of material formation. Rather, it introduces us to the Creator who brings life, purpose, and meaning to all things. From the moment of creation, when God speaks the world into existence, the divine order begins to unfold, showing us not only the greatness of God's power, but also His deep desire for relationship with His creation. The first 3 days of creation are focused on the establishment of structure and order. On day 1, God created light, not as a mere physical phenomenon, but as a symbol of His divine presence. Light is the first thing that enters the darkness, dispelling the void and revealing the world for the first time. This light is not just a scientific fact, it is a theological declaration that in the midst of chaos, God is present. His light shines through the darkness of our lives, illuminating our hearts, bringing clarity to confusion and hope to despair. In our lives today, we can find comfort in the knowledge that, even in the darkest moments, God's light is always present, ready to dispel our fears and give us clarity. Day 2 introduces the sky and the separation of waters above and below. The creation of the sky is more than just the formation of a physical boundary. It represents space, freedom, and protection. God creates a place where life can breathe, grow, and thrive. The sky becomes a symbol of the divine protection that surrounds us. Just as the sky provides space for the birds to soar, so too does God's grace offer us room to grow spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. How often do we find ourselves overwhelmed, feeling as if we have no room to breathe? Yet, just as God established the sky, He has given us the space we need to flourish. In our struggles, we are reminded that God has provided us with space to heal, to grow, and to find our true calling. On day 3, God gathers the waters together, allowing dry land to appear. The earth becomes a place of growth, where vegetation, trees, and plants begin to emerge. This is not just a material creation. It is an act of divine provision. God creates a fertile earth to sustain life. He commands the earth to bring forth vegetation, plants yielding seeds, trees bearing fruit. The earth is filled with abundance, a symbol of God's provision for His creation. In our lives, the earth and its fruits are a reminder that God has provided us with everything we need to flourish. Just as the earth brings forth life, we too are called to bring forth goodness, kindness, and love. Our lives are meant to reflect the abundance of God's grace, sharing with others the fruit of His love. The earth was not created to be barren or lifeless, and neither are we. We were created to be fruitful, to multiply the goodness and beauty that God has planted within us. In the same way that trees bear fruit, we are meant to bear the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. As the creation story progresses, we see the establishment of day and night, seasons, and the rhythms that govern the world. God's creation is not random or chaotic. It is ordered, purposeful, and intentional. The sun and moon were set in place to govern the day and the night, marking the passage of time, the seasons, and the rhythms of life. This is not just about the movement of celestial bodies. It is a reminder that we are called to live in harmony with the rhythms of God's creation. In our own lives, we often struggle with balance. We may feel overwhelmed by the constant demands of work, family, and personal obligations. But the rhythms of creation remind us that we too are called to live in harmony with God's design. Just as the seasons follow one another, we are called to find rest and renewal in the natural rhythms of life. God's creation invites us to pause, reflect, and rest in His presence. In the same way that He created the world with a rhythm of work and rest, He calls us to find that balance in our own lives. The pinnacle of creation, of course, comes on day 6 when God creates mankind. "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness," God declares. This moment is both profound and humbling. God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, chooses to create humanity in His image. We are not just another part of the created world, we are the crowning achievement of God's creative work. We are made in His image to reflect His character, His creativity, and His love. Being made in God's image is a powerful truth that speaks to the very core of our identity. It means that regardless of our flaws, our struggles, or our shortcomings, we reflect something of God's greatness. We are His image bearers, called to represent His love, His grace, and His truth in the world. This identity is not something we earn or achieve. It is a gift from our Creator, and it comes with a divine calling. We are called to steward God's creation, to bring order out of chaos, to love one another, and to live in harmony with the world around us. In our world today, where confusion and chaos often reign, we can find comfort in knowing that we are made in God's image. This truth gives us purpose, meaning, and dignity. It tells us that we are not here by accident, but by divine design. Every person we encounter, regardless of their background, their struggles, or their beliefs, is made in God's image. This truth calls us to honor and love one another, to reflect the Creator's love and kindness in everything we do. The creation narrative in Genesis does not just tell us how the world was made, it reveals the very heart of God, the God who desires relationship, who brings order to chaos, and who creates with purpose. God's work of creation is not just about making things. It is about forming a world where life can flourish, where humanity can live in harmony with Him and with one another. This story is not just a reflection of the physical world, but a reminder of the divine order that God has established. A world where we are called to live in relationship with our Creator and with His creation. As we reflect on Genesis and the creation story, we are reminded that God is still at work today, bringing order out of the chaos in our lives. Just as He formed the world with purpose and intentionality, He is shaping our lives with the same care and design. We may not always understand the process, but we can trust that God is working behind the scenes, bringing beauty, order, and purpose to the world He has created. This understanding invites us into a deeper relationship with our Creator, where we recognize our place in the grand story of creation. We are not mere spectators in this world. We are active participants in God's ongoing work. As we live out our calling to reflect His image, we are invited to bring His order, His love, and His grace into the world. And in doing so, we find our true purpose, living in harmony with God and with each other, just as He intended from the very beginning. As we come to the end of this journey through the beautiful, timeless words of Genesis, I want you to pause for a moment and reflect on what we've discovered together. It's so easy in this fast-paced world to get caught up in the questions. How old is the Earth? How do we reconcile faith with science? What does creation really mean? But in this video, we've shifted our focus to something deeper, something that transcends the facts and figures. We've looked beyond the material world and into the heart of the creation story, where the true message of Genesis lies. And I hope, like me, you felt the weight of that deeper truth. Genesis doesn't just give us a timeline of the Earth's age. It invites us into a relationship with our Creator. It shows us that life is not a series of random events or a simple chain of cause and effect, but a divine story where every moment, every season, and every person has purpose. The light, the sky, the earth, the plants, they were all created with intent, not just to fill space, but to give us a world in which we could live, love, and grow in harmony with our Creator. And we, made in the image of God, are part of that divine plan. We are not mere observers of creation. We are co-creators, invited to bring beauty, order, and love into the world, just as God did from the beginning. You see, the true message of Genesis isn't just in the creation of the physical world. It's in the creation of relationship. God created the heavens and the earth not as an end in itself, but to set the stage for a relationship with humanity, to bring us into the story of love, order, and redemption. The question of the Earth's age, while important to some, fades into the background when we realize the significance of the message. God created all things for us to live in relationship with Him and with one another. And this, my friend, is what makes life so deeply meaningful. I know that some of you may still be wrestling with the tension between science and faith, the age-old debate that has caused many to stumble. I invite you to look at it from a different angle. Instead of focusing on the conflict, let's embrace the truth that both science and faith seek to reveal the same Creator. Science may provide us with insights into the how of creation, but the Bible, in all its wisdom, reveals the why. When we understand this, we can reconcile the two, seeing them not as opposites, but as two sides of the same divine coin. If you're feeling the weight of these truths in your heart, if this message has shed some light in your life's journey, I'd like to invite you to share that energy. Your support means more than just clicks or likes. It's a connection that we share in this journey of discovering God's truth together. If you found peace, encouragement, or a new perspective from what we've discussed today, consider helping me continue this mission to spread God's word. Whether it's through a simple like, a comment, or subscribing to this channel, your support is a blessing that fuels this work. I truly believe that when we come together, when we share this light and truth, we make the world a brighter place. But beyond that, I want to thank you from the very depths of my heart. Your presence here is a reminder of how we are all part of God's creation, called to support, uplift, and care for one another. Every small gesture of kindness, every word of encouragement, is a ripple that extends far beyond us, touching lives in ways we may never fully comprehend. And as we continue to explore the beauty and depth of God's word, I am filled with gratitude for this community, for each of you who chooses to walk this path of discovery and faith alongside me. If you've been moved by the light of this video, if something in your heart has shifted or healed today, then I invite you to continue this journey. Let's engage in conversation in the comments. What did this video stir in you? Do you see creation differently now? What role do you think science and faith can play together in understanding our world? Your thoughts, your reflections are valuable, and they help us all grow closer to the truth. As we continue to explore these timeless truths, I pray that you find peace in the order that God has established, not just in the universe, but in your own life. Just as He created the heavens and the earth with intention and purpose, He has created you with love and a divine plan, And as we walk in the light of His truth, may we become the light in the darkness for those around us, reflecting His love, His grace, and His healing to a world that desperately needs it. Thank you once again for being part of this journey. Your support, your engagement, and your willingness to explore these deeper truths are a gift that I do not take lightly. Together, we are creating a space of healing, hope, and understanding, and I am so grateful for each and every one of you. May God continue to bless you abundantly, and may you walk in the light of His love today and always.